How to write an intro paragraph for a history paper. The hook. The first sentence of the essay should draw the reader in. One can use some clever, exciting idea that is related to the topic of your essay, but don't be too freaky. A question sometimes works, as does restating the prompt sometimes. One can also just explain the basic context of the history which your essay will address. Don't start with, this essay will show, or have you ever wondered? This first bit sounds a bit robotic and is really obvious. The second is a bit too middle school or something like a history documentary. Basically, the first sentence of your essay is meant to draw the reader in. It's called the hook, sometimes the bang, but basically it's just, telling your reader that they're now about to read an essay. Don't lead with your thesis, though. That's way too abrupt, and it just kind of sounds strange when you do that. So you just want a nice basic hook sentence, kind of an intro to your intro sentence. The other thing your essay should do is hint at the main points your essay will cover. For shorter essays, you should be able to provide a brief kind of thumbnail description of the main elements you will use to prove whatever thesis or claim you're going to prove. It may make sense to list the regions, people, etc. that the essay will compare or discuss. For a shorter essay, one should be able to warn what each main body paragraph will cover. Avoid putting evidence into the intro paragraph. That's for the body paragraphs. Avoid getting distracted and starting what should be a body paragraph. So don't, I often see people actually kind of just start their essay in their intro paragraph. Remember, your intro paragraph is an intro paragraph. You're going to tell them what you're going to tell them. You're not going to do the actual telling part yet. You're just laying the groundwork for what will later happen. So before you get to your thesis and after your hook, you kind of lay out basically the structure of your essay. And as I said, in a short essay, you can kind of just make sure you lay out what your body paragraphs are going to be, and that should be enough. If you're in AP or writing a more complicated essay, you can introduce the lenses of analysis that you're going to use. Any or all of the following possibilities would make sense for this concept. What will be the criteria by which you judge or analyze the topic of your essay? This is where you set your terms. Are you focusing on religion, gender, equality, economic success, etc.? This is where you could define key term or terms that clarify the essay that prompt in ways that you want. Essay prompts usually allow for many different ways of reading the prompt. You can use the intro to define how you're reading the prompt. So this is, however, pretty complex. So if you're doing a basic paper, you might be skipping this. But if you're writing a fairly complicated paper, or you want to kind of state exactly how you're reading the prompt and which understanding of the prompt you're writing to, you can throw in a sentence or two into your intro to kind of set the ground rules for how you're reading the prompt or what ways you're going to analyze the stuff you've probably already mentioned in the other part of the intro paragraphs. End your intro paragraph with your thesis or claim. By the way, thesis or claim mean the same thing basically. So here you want to make sure you explain in a sentence or two what it is that your essay is going to prove. Putting the thesis at the end of the intro paragraph is good for two main reasons. That's where most readers expect to find the thesis. It's kind of traditional. They won't miss it if you put it there. Two, it makes the paragraph read stronger to end with the most important point of the intro paragraph. So if you end your paragraphs with the thesis, or you end your intro paragraph with the thesis, you kind of end it with the strongest possible way. If you lead with your thesis, the rest of your intro paragraph is kind of downhill from there. So ending with the thesis as the last sentence or two of your intro paragraph will definitely kind of make sense to most readers, and it kind of ends the paragraph on the strongest point that you're making in that paragraph. So it reads better. A good thesis not only says what the essay will prove, but it also explains the because that goes into that, that makes your point more complex. So if you just say, for example, the sky is blue, it's true, and the essay might prove that, but it's kind of a flat and dull thesis. If you say the sky is blue as a result of atmospheric bruising caused when the moon bumps into us, that's a paper I'd want to read because that explains the why the sky is blue part. You don't have to use the word because, but obviously a more complicated thesis is going to have some because idea in it. Sometimes you just have a thesis that's kind of listy, and those work okay, but it's best if you can have a short, sharp thesis that says, here's what I'm going to prove, and the why that thing that I'm going to prove actually exists. I'll have a separate video about theses, but basically you want to make sure your thesis or claim ends the introduction paragraph. That's where it makes most sense, and for a basic paper, that works great.